On the meeting to order. Start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I get the approval for the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Second. Been moved and seconded. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Perfect. The consent agenda, we have 4 items. Healthcare EFT claims totaling $89,120.39. Healthcare EFT claims totaling $125,677.28. Healthcare EFT claims totaling $143,891.62. And claims vouchers 12677 to 12722 totaling $552,610.56. I get a motion to approve those. Would move. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Lawrence, if I get your hand up to second, is that right? Or do you have a question? Oh, second. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Lawrence, seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against say nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Approval of the meeting minutes for September 13th, 2022 work session. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Moved and seconded by Commissioner Lawrence. Any questions, discussions? All right, all those approved, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. September 20th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Chair would like to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Rowland and seconded by Commissioner Teoflat. Do you have a question, Teoflat? Okay, perfect. Any other discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. On to public comment. We do have a member of the public here to speak. Where do we need her to stand to be heard correctly?
Right here is where I was told.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you tonight. My name is Kenny Coyne. I know some of you know who are met tonight. When you're putting my first name and my last name together, Kenny, it would mean probably most people would think that I'm here to ask you for money. Not tonight. Maybe some. I'm very proud to be an extended family member of your RFA. Your door is very cool that we got. They asked me to load the sledgehammer, and I tried. But I'm very glad that I was able to do that, and we're going to do things together in the future. But tonight, coming on Christmas, and I decided that you are my heroes. And I'm so happy to know each and every one of you and to get to know you better. I call you saints, but my priest wouldn't let that pass muster. So I'm going to add to heroes as well as heroes to your patrons. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service, your dedication, and your commitment. And tonight I have a little gift for you. So Chair Daniels, Chief Provost, would you join me? The token of my esteem for all of you, the firefighters, EMS, first responders, all of those who go out and save lives every single day. Thank you. South County, this is made in Tennessee. It's all hand painted. The stars are not done with a stencil, they're done by hand. And you are all my heroes. You have my profound appreciation.
Says your name.
Yes, it does.
Thank you so much.
And I made cookies, by the way, Jenna.
And they look pretty fancy.
There you go.
Take one with both hands.
Well, if you did, I don't. think so.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do that. Don't smash the cookie.
It's very nice. Thank you, Ms. Point. Thank you.
Don't eat the cookies that way.
Now I know what to put in my mouth.
So yes, she did bring cookies. Thank you so much for that.
Can I say
Go ahead.
something? Ms. Cohen, really thank you. Really thank you for doing this. Definitely, this is the first time ever. I've been here for, God, 16, 17 years, the first time ever. A public come and show the appreciation. I think mainly for the staff, I think they've really done a good job. And especially for holiday season cookies and all that stuff. Boy, if you run for commissioner, you definitely get my vote. All right?
I only have to move a mile and a half to be in the RFA. But my sister's in the RFA, so I might just use her address.
Okay, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you again. All right, go on to the fire chief's report.
Good evening, commissioners. Yes, and staff, those watching on Zoom, that's an unexpected gift for the RFA and very humbling. So I want to thank you, my fire chief's report. I was just told that Ms. Coyne flew to Tennessee to get that and back. So it is unprecedented as well, Commissioner Chan, what you mentioned. I'd like to also remind everyone of the generous donation that Ms. Coyne gave to enhance our training tower, our drill ground, just to the north of this building. So thank you very much, Penny, and very much appreciate you. Tonight, commissioners, you have been emailed answers to 2 question inquiries. I've also have printed copies there at your desk, as well as my fire chief report that supplements call volume and also some of the COVID data, which is starting to get outdated because people truly are not tracking it. But I will offer, we only have 1 employee out with COVID-like symptoms right now. And our crews are doing an outstanding job every day here. And you can see it on page 2 with the first watch data, but they were 25% busier year over year. A lot of that's related to weather events and wind that's passed and snow that's still on the ground. I really want to compliment the crews for their very, very hard work. Looking at the last 18 hours, or if we could go to slide 2. I want to capitalize on telling the commissioners that we've had 3 significant residential fire events in the last 18 hours. So on top of this busier call volume, we had 2 fires in Linwood and 1 fire in Mount Lake Terrace. Mount Lake Terrace fire was an exterior vent with a boat that caught on fire. That fortunately our crews got there, stopped too much exposure. This was the last fire that happened earlier this morning, not too far from 208th Street Southwest and Highway 99. A few of the chiefs sitting here with you today were able to see the good work. This fire was very advanced and is a total loss. That's one of our newer firefighters, Anthony Casanas. who's also worked in firefighter training, putting water on that fire. Support 7 and American Red Cross and Chaplain Group also responded. So all 3 events are still under investigation. So we've been doing a great job in the street. So thank you. Lori, let's go back to slide number 1 if you could, please. Commissioners, you've had presentations in the past about the Support 7 program from Executive Director Shannon Sessions. And you know very well about our chaplain group. Want to let you know that the 2023 first responder calendar, and I believe this is a 3rd edition of this, is going to be available soon for purchase for $25. Also, there's a fundraiser that's coming up for Support 7. I remember Commissioner Chan, you asking, hey, let's get some notice because people would like to attend that event, and calendars get very busy here at the end of the year. So that information will be provided to you all, commissioners, and it's a great calendar that highlights all of the fire agencies in Southwest Snohomish County, and that means 2 agencies, Mukilteo and South County Fire, and all the law enforcement agencies to include Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. So some great pictures also of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and other 501c3 stakeholders. So great product. They do a great service for our community and responded to each of those 3 fire events that I told you about previously. And with that, I think we're getting close to the end of the slide deck, Lori. And I do want to tell you about one more item to jot into your calendars, and we'll get you additional information. Next Friday, 7 p.m., Linwood High School, we're graduating our fall academy class. So our recruits, along with the City of Everett Fire Department recruits that have been in the academy, are going to be graduating. It's a beautiful venue. The graduation ceremony's been held there once, plenty of seating, not good for parking. Get there early. But we'll get you that information. Everyone's welcome, friends, family, members of the public that are watching this. We'll get the organizational message out. With that, that concludes my fire chief report for this evening. And again, thank you for your very kind gift.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for identifying what NGO stood for. I was about to ask that question.
I want to put $1 in the tip to ours. So thank you.
Any questions for the fire chief? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Legal report. Attorney Richard Davis.
All right, good evening, commissioners. Very short legal report tonight. I'll reserve most of my comments for the business that we have later on in the agenda in the executive session. Just over the course of the last month, some of the work we've done have dealt with the property purchase for the new Fire Station 22, working through some of the issues involving that property. We have been actively involved with supporting and supervising outside consultants for South County Fire. We've dealt with some issues involving the potential for a Briar to annex into the authority, and have prepared the pre-annexation agreement that's on for discussion later in the agenda. Dealt with some other contract drafting and revision issues, and then finally have kind of worked through some last issues involving the transition involving Mill Creek that will be taking place very shortly this month. That pretty much sums it up for the work over the course of the last 30 days. And like I said, I'll have more to say as we work through the agenda tonight.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, I'm not seeing any. I look forward to further conversations. Union report. Looks like Mr. Zach Cash.
Yeah, good evening to all, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holiday season. Thanks to Ms. Coyne for her kind words and for her donation on the behalf of the local. Obviously, those training prompts are super important for our members to practice on and be able to work effectively when there's those types of issues that we face. So thank you. As Chief noted, we've been busy lately. I had the honor of coming back on my first shift after a bit of vacation, and it just so happened to be the snow event that we had. And so my station ran about 30 calls and we were up all night, and thankfully everyone was safe, and that's the most important thing. But it was probably one of the busiest shifts I've ever had at Station 16. And finally, just several of our executive board members have attended the American Academy Leadership Board Retreat at the invitation of staff and commissioners. And I just want to say thank you for working through some of the issues that our agency is facing in the spirit of collaboration and partnership. So thank you. We look forward to just continued dialogue on all that we discussed. So that is everything I have tonight. One last thing, we did have some we did have a vote and some new elections for officers. So you'll see some new faces. Some that you've already seen have moved into different positions. So I just want to make you aware of that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Zach. Unfinished business, pre-annexation agreement, City of Briar, renegotiated terms of existing contract, Deputy Chief Eastman and Deputy Chief Maxwell and PIO Leslie Hines. Chief, do you want to say anything? before
Yeah, I just want to mention that Chief Maxwell has the rare opportunity. One of his sons is a wrestling varsity today at Jackson High School. So we thought it'd be a good time to let Sean go visit Mill Creek and watch his son wrestle varsity. So he won't be joining us tonight. He's excused. Thanks.
So good evening, Chair Daniels and the rest of the board. A lot of this is stuff very similar to what we do with Mill Creek. So one of the documents with the City of Briar and their request to annex into RFA, one of the needed documents is a pre-annexation agreement. If you go to page 35 of your packet, you'll see the agenda bill that kind of gives a little description of where we were and how we got here. With the help of Council Rich Davis, on page 37 is the start of the pre-annexation agreement with Briar. The intent of this is as you know, if Briar has the intent to go to vote in April, which would mean that they would annex into the RFA the 1st of August. The pre-annexation agreement kind of deals with the transition and it's of fire service. Now, the difference with this is we're already the service provider. But it talks about, the current existing agreement we have from August 1st till December 31st will be what funds the RFA until we have the ability to levy taxes to the residents of Briar. With Briar, it's more simplistic than what we had with the City of Mill Creek. There is no station asset to transfer because we are the owners of Station 18 and Briar does not have any capital assets. Briar, and Chief, I'm going to make sure I say this right. Briar had no firefighters, so they have no liabilities associated with firefighters that would come, for example, left liability that has come in the other annexations we have. The only thing that's a little bit unique with this one is, as the board knows, we have Liz Loomis as one of our communication consultants. And the ILA specifically talks about how Liz will be utilized to help with the education for the City of Briar's annexation, which is the thing that's unique to this one versus any of the other ones. So with that, I think I'll pause, see if there's any questions the board has, and I guess before I do that, Rich, do you have anything you'd like to add before we take questions?
No, Bob, I think you covered it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gan?
Yeah, so Liz Lewis, is she working on behalf of us or on behalf on Briar or on behalf just the project itself?
So we retain Liz and Liz does work for us on a regular basis.
Right.
And so as part of the pre-annexation agreement, she's going to help with the education, both with us and a little bit of help with the City of Briar to help some of the messaging to go along with educating the taxpayers and the voters in the City of Briar to make sure they have all the information correct.
And how long the contract is going to be?
Well, the pre-annexation agreement will go till the end of next year.
No,
if they're
the
successful.
engagement of Liz
With
Lewis.
Liz, our engagement with Liz is for the whole year. And so the work she'll do is the work that she would do on behalf of us and the City of Briar would specifically that would be very, very narrow.
Is there any way we can get her to come? SAG, if you want to do, how do you do it? How does it compare to previous messages.
We can do that. I think one of the things we need to remember is that the messaging would be specific to what the city of Briar wants to message. I will tell you. One of the things Briar's been discussing and has discussed, they had a meeting at the end of last month. About where they are from a financial perspective. They had Burke and Associates come in. And do a high level look at their revenues and their expenditures and you know, a longer term forecast of where they are. To help educate the city electeds on, as you know, in most of our regionalization efforts, when they officially come into the RFA, City of Linwood, City of Mill Creek were able to give I use the term rebate. I don't know what the right term is, but they were able to reduce their general levy equivalent to, or a portion of what they collected that came out of the general for fire service. And Briar is looking at that because they've got expenses, they've added a police department, and they've added some big expenses to their city budget. And they're looking at what does that mean long term. So their messaging may be a little bit different as a result of maybe not being able to get it back.
I'm not giving value, value. I just like to know a little bit so that, you know, if we have, because this is not our first time, like you said, it's first time, so some of us may have some input in there or just reaction to whatever she said. That would be great.
Okay.
Which is, I have to, it's really important. Messaging is important. That's why we hire, you know, professional to do it. But at the same time, though, I think we should be able to listen before the message out. Thank you.
Mr. Kenny?
Thank you. Chief Eastman, I didn't see exhibit 1 in the packet dealing with what is going to happen if the annexation measure fails. So I was wondering if you could describe that.
So the intent, and this is the piece that we have the renegotiated terms of the existing terms. The conversation we've had with the city is based on the letter that they received from Chief Hobus earlier this year about the current contract and the challenges we have with the fees we receive to provide the service and the challenges we have with that. The conversations that we currently have an existing contract that goes through 2024. It's been made very clear to the city council from not just the meeting staff is at, but the meeting that the intergovernmental was at, and then a subsequent follow-up letter, I believe, from the chair, that if we stay in a contractual agreement with the city of Briar after December 31st of 2024, the cost of the contract will be equivalent to parity. I use the term parity, but we referenced it would be the equivalent of the benefit charge for the city of Briar and the equivalent of what our general fire levy is and our EMS levy is would be what the cost of the contract would be. We haven't gotten that far yet with things just moved a little bit slower. I was hoping to be able to bring both the pre-annexation agreement and the renegotiated current contract with the language that would say in 2025 and beyond, if for some reason we're not successful at the ballot, that your new formulary for the cost of providing service in the city of Briar would be our fire levy rate, our EMS levy rate, and we can calculate, we have the ability to calculate what their benefit charge would be, so they're paying the same as the residents with the RFA. So we have a topic that we'll be talking about in executive session later tonight, and we can go into a little bit further detail on that, Commissioner Kenny, because what we talk about tonight will inform your question.
But in terms of exhibit 1 to the pre-annexation agreement, it hasn't been drafted.
Right, that piece has not been completed. And my hope is to be able, we're running out of
You're working on it.
days, yes. Runway.
Yeah.
So, and that goes, and the same goes for the fire marshal's agreement. And as you know, when we did the Mill Creek annexation agreement, We pulled the fire marshal agreement because we have, if they go in August, in April, we have more time to do that. We may very well take the fire marshal agreement like we did with Mill Creek and pull it from the pre-annexation agreement and be able to work on that once we're successful at the ballot. Breyer's cost for fire marshals is very minimal compared to the others. But you may see that happen as we bring this forward for you to actually consider approving the pre-annexation agreement just because of timing and the such.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Chief Eastman, did you want action tonight on that?
No, this was solely for discussion purposes for this is we've talked about the pre-annexation, but this is the first time the board's seen the document. So no, we're not. We'll bring this forward, hopefully before the last meeting in December, for action, so we can have the city of Breyer do the same thing and move forward. So we would anticipate bringing this forward, maybe for further discussion at the work session, and hopefully for action on the 20th.
When is the city of Breyer looking to move forward with some sort of?
So we have a meeting, or actually Leslie's gonna have a meeting with the city in the morning.
Okay.
They have the draft. They've actually been reviewed. We took input from their legal. I'm not sure when they're gonna bring first read and stuff to the council. I'm sure Leslie will find that information out.
Okay.
But I think we're on a lot of the same timeline for these agreements like we were with City of Mill Creek. Hopefully we can get most of these by the end of by the last meeting we have in December, if not by the first meeting in January, because they have to have all their documents, which includes passage of the plan or the RFA plan amendment they have to approve by council, the pre-annexation agreement they'll have to approve. Then they'll take a pause. I can't recall if they need a public hearing or not. And then they'll do the resolution, put on the ballot, and then after that, then they have pros con committee. So they have a time that they're working backwards. So I'll have a better idea or actually Leslie will have a better idea when she meets with Paula and her team tomorrow of what their plans are for timeline, and we'll work that and brief you on that next week. If that's okay.
Thank you. Next item is item B under unfinished business, Mill Creek Fire Marshal Agreement, Deputy Chief Eastman.
So on page 46 of your packet, you'll see the agenda bill. And starting on page 48, you'll see the interlocal agreement for fire marshal services, City of Mill Creek. For those, the document, the only thing we've added to the document of substance is the cost. Otherwise, the documents really similar to what you saw in the pre-annexation agreement prior to pulling it and using it as a separate item. I do know, and I see that Liaison Todd's on the meeting. I know this was brought before the Mill Creek City Council tonight. And I guess with that, if it's okay, Chair, I'll pause and let Liaison Todd tell us what happened at the City of Mill Creek's meeting tonight, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Yeah, the council considered that tonight, and bottom line, they approved it, so they're ready to go, knowing that it takes both parties to agree to this. But I explained that it was draft watermarked only because both agencies had to approve it, and they were fine with it. So we're ready to go ahead. That contract price is what city had put into their budget. A little bit of discussion, understanding that you guys are on a 1-year annual budget and the city's on a biennial budget. But really, fundamentally, the thing we talked about some was that this is basically 2 years to get acquainted. We, the City of Mill Creek, have very little data or understanding about how the fire marshal services have worked over the last many, many years, particularly with respect to fire inspections. We've been involved in the development review aspect, but the inspection has been kind of a mystery to us. And so Chief Eastman is going to help us try to extract records from Surfer about what our past business clients have experienced, but the city is still looking forward to how we're gonna set our fees, but that has nothing to do with this agreement, the money in the agreement. Or the agreement talks about city will set the fees, city will collect that money, and we'll turn around and pay our portion of the contract with that. So if there's any questions for what happened at City Mill Creek, I'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, I think it's back to South County Fire for their action tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
So a couple of the highlights for the agreement, the terms, it's initial 2-year deal with the 12-month out. So it's a total of 3 years, and then it's a 1-year, 12-month termination. Some of our other ones are 2-year terminations. This one is they cannot terminate till December 31st of 2024, and then it's 12 months. The other thing that we haven't talked about is if you go to page 60. I know we had some general discussions about this, but we actually put numbers. The labor costs they're paying for half of a fire marshal and or 25% of a fire marshal and 25% of a deputy fire marshal. These numbers we received from CFO Bothwell and they're based on 2023. And the M&O is our historical 10 and 10, and then the capital is 1/2 of what a vehicle costs on an 8-year replacement schedule. And one of the things that to remember with regards to City Mill Creek and some of the conversation we had as we went through the preliminary conversations prior to going on the ballot, what Liaison Todd and I have discussed as we go is because Snohomish Regional has been providing that service to the City of Mill Creek. There's Mill Creek. We took our best guess, and we were fortunate enough because we had Chief Fitzgerald, who worked for Surfer, that kind of gave us a ballpark of what the fire marshal needs were going to be for the City of Mill Creek. And so that's where we started. But the intent of this agreement is to ensure that the City of Mill Creek gets the fire marshal services they need, and the cost for that service is paying for actually the service they're getting and they need. So the goal is that they get the service they need, and we get the revenue that is needed to support the service we're providing. Now, we also are going to monitor this because the city doesn't really know and doesn't have a whole lot of historical perspective on what has been done in the city to date. And so you may see as we go the need to adjust the services we provide and the cost that it costs to do that within the time frame of this first 3 years as we continue to determine what the needs for the city are for fire marshal work and adjust this agreement to accommodate what that is and to adjust the cost of the agreement to make sure that the RFA is receiving just compensation and the city has the services they need. And that's been the intent through this whole process, because unlike the city of Linwood, who had their own fire marshal's office, who were intimately knowledgeable of what the needs in the city were, City of Mill Creek's at a slight disadvantage because they don't know. So I wanted the board to know that, because if we find out 6 months from now that we wholly underestimated the City of Mill Creek needs, we'll come back and have that conversation with the board and make the, I think from a staff's perspective, intent is we make the appropriate changes to provide services for the city at the just compensation. I think those were the highlights of the fire marshal agreement as it sits. And I think we put in the agenda bill that staff would consider for taking actions tonight if they chose.
Question for you. You said that because City of Linwood understood their needs on this topic, what have you guys been able to do to understand Mill Creek's needs?
So a lot of what we did is we were fortunate enough to have Chief Fitzgerald, and he was in the fire marshal's office and had knowledge of what Surfer did for Mill Creek from that perspective. I think with what we're not sure about is how often things were inspected, if Surfer charged for those inspections or not. how often they did them. Did they do them annually? They do biannually, do them every 3 years? And those kind of pieces. And then in a lot of the conversations that Liaison Todd and I have been having recently is the city of Mill Creek needs to set up a structure to actually be able to charge for those services from the city's perspective to recoup some of the costs for inspections and permanent inspections and new construction inspections and all those other pieces. And so I know our fire marshal staff has been working with Mike and some of the folks from the city of Mill Creek to help and connecting them. I think today we connected them with the city of Linwood to give a very broad picture of how Linwood does it for Mill Creek to be able to model after and then move forward with what the city needs to do to not only cover the cost, but get an idea of what Linwood does to see how that correlates with the city of Mill Creek. And then that will then inform the rest of the conversation with regards to needs. I think we're knowing what Chief Fitzgerald knew about the thing. We think where we're starting is a good place. It's just with growth and where things are at and all that stuff, we may see the city of Mill Creek have other things coming and they need to increase because more building and all that and those other pieces. So does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Vice Chair Rowland. I do know that when I met with the fire marshals, one of the things that they brought out was that we were kind of behind due to COVID and that pushing back some of the schedule. Would we anticipate that Mill Creek is most likely in the same situation where they're kind of behind and we need to play catch up?
I'll take that because of those 3 fire events I talked about earlier. I had a chance to interact with Deputy Fire Marshal Eric Dyer and Deputy Fire Marshal Chris Bird. And just for those type of events, after they get done doing an investigation, it takes 8 hours just to complete a report that could potentially go to trial in case it was a criminal type act. So to answer your question, that what they told you still does exist. We have Deputy Chief Fitter here too, as a fire marshal, and had that conversation today. I want to tell the commission when you do choose to approve this, we have an active deputy fire marshal promotional list, and the sooner that we can take that candidate and get them completed their training, get them ready to help all of our cities that are under contract or help with Linwood and now Mill Creek, it'll just be better. So one thing these contracts have not done and kept up with since in Mount Lake Terrace and Briar in 2005, Edmonds in 2010, the formation of the RFA 2017, and now with Mill Creek has kept up with the growth of Southwest Snohomish County. So to answer your question, Commissioner Rowland, this is a step in the right direction, but we'll continue to need to work with our cities to make sure that we have the human capital, the personnel to do this type of work. Hopefully that helps answer.
And we will be getting at least access to the records from Surfer to find out, to find that specific question out. Where they are in their inspection process, how often they're doing it, and be able to take that and get that information to City of Mill Creek and then decide the City of Mill Creek can talk about how often they want to do inspections because some of that resides with the city. But we just haven't got that information yet, but we're connecting dots to get it. And then the long term is we need to be able to have access to some of those records for historical perspectives long term. So we're working through that.
When would you anticipate that we would have that data?
I'm hoping to have a conversation with their fire marshal tomorrow to see where that lies.
And the initial conversations with myself and Chief O'Brien being that District 7 and 3 didn't merge until fall of 2016. And District 8 didn't come in from Lake Stevens to form Surfer till well after. The data points aren't necessarily separated over the years or by the activities in each of the 3 cities that have been served over that 5-year time frame. So it's difficult to get a definitive answer to connect the dots. But we'll ask one more time and hopefully get some more information. But it's been a challenge, I think, historically since we started down this pathway.
Do you anticipate that once we have that information, it would affect the numbers that we have here, because you're asking for us to possibly approve this ILA, but we've got a little bit of unknowns, and it sounds like we might have that by our next meeting. Would it be better for us to wait? Would there be anything substantive that would change this?
I actually-
As far as dollar amounts or anything like that?
Commissioner, I don't think so.
Okay.
I really don't. I think with the benefit we had with having Chief Fitzgerald here and already being intimate with that and having done the work there, I think we've got a great base to start from. I think where changes will happen is if Snohomish Regional was on, they're doing every 3 years, they do an inspection. And the city of Mill Creek says we want to do them more frequent than that for lots of reasons. Those are the things that will do it, but those are direct actions that the city would choose to take that would increase or decrease our workload moving forward. So I don't think it would make any changes to what we currently have at this time, no.
So does the current ILA assume a specific schedule for providing the services?
Now I gotta go back and look.
This is Liaison Todd, and I'll jump in with my Mill Creek hat on. It does not. It basically says, here's the list of the services, and Exhibit A is all the services. B is the price. And Chief Eastman is right. What we're doing is we're saying City of Mill Creek wants to use 1/2 of a fire marshal resource, and we're going to pay for 1/2. And the trick is the dial we're going to have to turn up and down in Mill Creek is how often do we do inspections so that we use that full amount we're paying for, but don't overtax the amount that you guys are agreeing to provide to us. And like Chief Eastman says, it's a bad place to be, but Mill Creek have never had a fire department and have never been involved with the inspection thing at all. And so we just have no records, and it is not, I'll be blunt. Chief Hovis is maybe a little bit less blunt than but I'm blunt. Surfer is not very anxious to spend a lot of time digging out records for us. It's just been difficult. And we can get them by public records request if we have to, but I think we're getting to the point where a lot of the other activities with respect to the transition are kind of ramping down. So that's what Chief Eastman and I are looking at, an opportunity to get that working for us. And my hope is I don't think Mill Creek is in a bad spot in terms of inspections. I know we're in a great spot in terms of development review. We're up to date on that stuff. So we're not with a big backlog there. But like Eastman says, it might be that they've only been inspecting restaurants every 3 years, and it really be a good idea to do it every year. And that's a decision we'll have to take. And we're also looking at our fees we're going to charge. If we're going to triple the frequency, then we're also going to charge them more for what they've been getting.
Gotcha. So the assumption here is that the dollar amounts that we've kind of quoted out here is to provide equivalent service to what they're currently getting from the previous provider.
Yeah, and we'll be in a position where if the work required is more than than a half FTE, we'll have conversations with the city. So we won't, the goal is not to be in the spot where we have an agreement that says we want all this done, but we're only going to pay for half. So you figure out how to get the other half an FTE to finish the work. We're both in agreement that they get half an FTE, and that's the work we get to perform. And if they have work that's more and over and above that, we'll have a conversation, discuss what that is, and then the city will have some decisions to make on if they're going to change some things to require less work, or if they're going to increase dollars and cents to the table. But I think we're in a really good spot moving forward. I just wanted to let the board know that unlike the city of Glenwood, which is the last fire marshal agreement we did, this one, there's a lot of things that we want to ensure. And the intent is that we will make sure the city of Mill Creek gets the services they need. The city of Mill Creek is going to ensure that they cover the cost of those services. And I just wanted to let the board know, you may see us in 6 months if we truly underestimated the number of hours needed to do the work, and have an adjustment. And it's not because we horribly messed up. It's we found some things and the city identified what they want, and we'll adjust and amend as needed.
And just one other thing to remember, commissioners, is even if Server was able to produce the data, we've been in COVID 2020, 2021, until recently with a lot of restrictions. So even if they had activities commensurate with what we would be providing, they would be too low. Because we haven't been in a lot of businesses as well, because we couldn't get in there. So this is our best effort based on the information and intel we've had in working with Snohomish Regional, Mr. Todd, City of Mill Creek, and understanding our current needs here and reflecting on the unique characteristics of Mill Creek, which is different than any other city. It's different than Briar, different than Edmonds, different than Linwood. So, thank you.
Just one last question then. I couldn't find it in here. Is there a section that you basically said if it's above the capacity for a fire marshal at 25% usage, that then it would be revisited? Is that particular kind of threshold
So there's
explicitly
several,
called out?
now I gotta find them. So there's several places. And in my doc,
4.1, 2, and 3.
which ones? Mike?
4.1, 4.2, 4.3 talk about changing that level of
So
service.
if you look at Article 4,
Yeah, I saw that. What I'm trying to figure out is where we defined what that level of service is as what you just said. I mean, we have a dollar amount here, but we don't actually say hour wise or anything like that, what the expectation is for level of service. We have list of services, but there was no, Section 4 references the level of service, but it doesn't actually lay out what that level is.
so they're getting somebody 50% of the time. So they're getting a 50% employee to do that. So that's, I would answer it like they're getting somebody 2.5 days a week.
Gotcha.
Or we do 20/80. It's about 1,000 hour a year employee.
One thing also to keep in mind is this was budget approved in the 2023 budget in our discussions. Previously approved by the commission pending this ILA, so this was part of those discussions and itemized list as well.
Does that
I guess the question is should we put that expectation, that level of service, as you just laid out, in the document itself? Just to, that way we can actually say, okay, the level of service that we were providing was this amount. It's going to take more than that amount, so that triggers the need for doing an amendment.
So we have not done that in the past with our other fire marshal agreements. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. But we have not done that in the past.
Historically, has there been a need for that?
I guess I'll answer that question a couple different ways. One is in one aspect, it would be nice to say we do, 3,000 inspections a year, and anything over 3,000 inspections, you're going to pay more. The challenge with that is that there are inspections that can take 10 minutes and there's inspections that can take 5 hours. And so we've done everything based on the FTE. So the percentage of FTE they pay. So in this case, they're paying the equivalent of a half a FTE. So if they're using that employee more than 50% of the time to do the work, then we use that as the barometer to have a question, because in this world, and I'm not an inspector, I'm not a fire marshal cat. And Carl, maybe if I go way off the rails, you can chime in, is that there'll be certain times where they do lots of plan reviews. There'll be lots of times that they do new construction inspections. And then there'll be times where they don't do any of those for a long period of time and they're doing these other things. And so it's not like I could say, you're going to do this. It's hard to do that because it's so dynamic.
Yeah.
And so we chose not to do that. We list out the functions that we're going to work on and the expectation that we'll do the work. And if we give them a 50% employee and it takes more than a half-time employee to do the work, we'll engage in a conversation, say it's more than half an employee. We need to have a conversation.
Okay. The only reasons my only concern is that we don't know what the current level of service is that is being provided. We're committing to basically maintaining that level of service. We don't know what the backlog is. We don't have anything in here to basically say, this is what we're committing to. We got a dollar amount and then the existing level of service. We don't say anything in here, anything above that 50% mark. I think I would maybe feel more comfortable personally if there was some language in there given the uncertainty, but that's just my opinion. I'll rely on my other commissioners to.
Just to kind of build on the history in Briar, Mount Lake Terrace, Edmonds and Woodwood, there wasn't that either. It was the people that were providing that work. We have a full person approved in the budget. If Mill Creek's paying for half and they end up paying for 2/3 or the leg and the arm on the right side of that person, that's what that's going to end up looking like. But if there's a residential or commercial fire effective when we take over service, we're have to do the post-fire investigation, which adds, if that's the fourth one today, in those 8-hour reports. That's why I think what you're referring to, sort of like the city of Edmonds with the threshold notification or remedial measure in the renegotiated 2016 agreement, that's a trigger point. But I've just felt so good since the initial outreach from the former city manager to our former board chair that Mill Creek was exploring their options, and the success of the vote of them annexing fully into the RFA, the second city. I think that looking forward to reflection on this document that City of Mill Creek, I understand, is approved, and hopefully us approving this and me reading, actually Deputy Chief Fitterer maybe reading an oath of office to our next Deputy Fire Marshal will be serving the City of Mill Creek within this month. So thank you for that question. That was very good. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Liaison Todd, you had your hand up.
Well, I was going to chime in. We've been talking about a half FTE through all the discussions. During the budget proposal, we saw that same half FTE that turned into this number. But you're right, Vice Chair Rowland, that it is not, doesn't say half FTE in here. I was kind of surprised, actually. I was checking through, like you're right. It isn't in there. It's in the presentation I made to council tonight. It's in all the discussion we've had for the last year. I think the expectation is 1,000 hours of somebody's time over 2023. And I expect us fully to keep a kind of a ledger of what we're doing so that it is fair, because I think we both want to keep it fair. So whatever makes you guys comfortable, but I think it's if you go look at the budget document, that's where the half comes in and ties back to this number.
Yeah, I just had a technical question, I guess. I don't know why my mind went to this, but currently when we do an investigation, I would assume that the investigators are commissioned by law enforcement because of preservation of evidence and some other things.
There's certifications for CFI. If that's your question, sir, we'll have Fire Marshal, Deputy Chief Fitterer answer that.
Is there a law enforcement commission? Because the document here says that the City of Mill Creek will issue if they see fit, a limited commission in the preservation of evidence. And so it struck a bell in my mind that Mill Creek has never done this before. Now it's a new tasking on the police department, and they would have to work hand in hand with whoever now is investigating any sort of issues there. So it's what struck me was, would it be a shared commission between multiple law enforcement agencies, since we do multiple jurisdictions, let's say Snohomish County Sheriff, for example, and the City of Mill Creek, or can they recognize a commission as a lateral over and some preservation of evidence and distribution of information as follow-up? It's all kind of new, I think, is what I'm getting the story, right? If they hadn't done this before necessarily. So I'm just curious about that.
Carl, could you answer that question, please, regarding preservation of evidence for the fire off
And
the
the commission.
208th today for the commissioners and the commission?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. Right now, the Snohomish County Fire Marshal's office is the one that does their investigations, and they are commissioned through the Snohomish County Sheriff's Department. We work hand in hand, and we're trained to collect the evidence and that sort of thing. But what we will do is work with the Mill Creek PD for the evidence to be accepted from us and for them to be able to then work forward with the law enforcement side of it. And that's what we do with all of our partner cities is we do the work. It's really a great partnership because they have to have a warrant in order to get onto the property. But the way the law is stated, they can actually come in with us in the footsteps of a firefighter is the way the law reads, which is really curious. They can't collect anything and they can't take photographs, but we can. So because the scene is ours, we can do that. So they can actually instruct us, hey, that looks like, why don't we do a collection of this? Why don't we collect that for, sending off to the lab? Let's get some photographs and stuff. They can ask us for anything like that, and then we can turn it over to them at the end of the investigation.
I had no idea.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? All right. Chair would like to entertain a motion to accept the Mill Creek Fire Marshal Agreement. Moved by Commissioner Perrin-Hoff, seconded by Commissioner Teoflack. Any further questions? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, by nay. Motion carries.
Staff, thanks you very much.
Thank you.
New business. Chief Eastman, you're on the hot seat again.
So this is really a housekeeping issue. It's the ILA with the Port of Edmonds for the mortgage of Marine 16. It's on the agenda bill's on page 61 of your packet. So in the packet, you should have received the original Fire District 1 ILA with them that was signed in 13. And then prior to that, it was the city of Edmonds that had that agreement. Really, the agreement is the only thing that changed is they added the insurance requirements that are based in the RCW, which we already have. And the port wanted to add that language. And it's what we already do, and it's what the statute said, which is the real substantive change to that agreement. Otherwise, for the most part, outside the dates, it's exactly the same. And so with this, because this is something that's been ongoing, and it was just to add that language with the port. I know this is the first time you've seen this one, but this is one where staff would like the board to consider allowing the chief to sign this ILA and continue our partnership with the Port of Everett for the next 2 years.
Edmonds.
Sorry, Port of Edmonds, sorry.
You're thinking Everett.
No, it's just been a long day. Sorry. With that, any questions on this ILA?
Any questions, commissioners? First reading. Next meeting, otherwise, yes. All right, thank you, Chief Eastman.
You want us to bring this forward next meeting?
Do I what?
You want us to bring this forward at the next meeting?
Yes, please. That way we can take action on it.
Next regular business meeting, then the third meeting in December.
That's
All right, thank you.
Can we bring it in consent? Is that okay with the board?
Is that all right?
I think bring it as a special meeting. You want it next week to be complete.
If we get it approved before the end of the year, it would be fantastic with me. If we bring it on the 20th, would you like to see it in consent rather than full business?
Board members, you okay if we do that? We move it to the consent agenda instead of old business, or unfinished business rather?
Yeah.
Sure, that sounds good.
If there's any concerns, we can always pull it off the consent agenda and talk about it.
Okay, we'll do that.
We'll
Thank you.
bring it in the December 20th meeting.
Thank you. The guy on the other side of the fire chief, your turn to be in the hot seat. CFO Bothwell, the third quarter financial report and introduction of the 2022 budget amendments.
All right, thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm gonna PowerPoint in this hybrid environment. All right, so this is the quarterly finance update. I'm going to start with what to expect with these quarterly finance updates, since it is the first one I'm bringing to you. So the first thing to expect is high-level budget to actual information. So this is kind of the typical piece that you're probably expecting. We'll also include significant items, observations, and trends. And so these would be items that may affect the finances for the current period or future budgets. And then I'll include other matters and updates as well. And these would be things that I'd include just for your awareness. So for the financial results for the third quarter ending September 30th, 2022, the results are pretty unremarkable, which is a positive thing. It means that the actual financial results are consistent with the budget. Revenues were stable and predictable. There are two exceptions. Ground emergency medical transport, or GEMT, collections exceeded the budgeted amounts by nearly $2 million. That's obviously a positive. And then pandemic-related reimbursements and investment income were higher than budgeted as well, which also is a positive. Expenditures is kind of the same story. Operating expenditures were tracking with the spending plan, so nothing remarkable there. We did have some overages in some areas, but those were offset with savings elsewhere in the operating budget. We do need a budget amendment for 2022. It's a housekeeping amendment, and it's strictly for the capital fund. The capital fund does not appear to be threatening to go over its budget as a whole. But the budget was adopted by asset class in 2022. And we have 2 asset classes that are going to go over their budget for year end. And so we're proposing an amendment to the budget for that. This is kind of a routine housekeeping adjustment. The details of it are in your packet. Our intention is to bring that back on consent on December 20th, unless the board would prefer to discuss that item. And then my final slide is just some finance topics that are coming to you soon. The first one obviously is the routine quarterly reports. These are going to become routine, and so the next one will be in late January or early February, and that'll be through the 4th quarter or the entire year for 2022. We've also fully implemented the labor contract, but we do still have to make the retro payments to labor. That is scheduled to be completed in January, and we're going to bring you a budget amendment associated with that item. In the 1st quarter of 2023, we'll be talking about financial policies, hopefully getting those adopted in advance of the 2024 budget development. And then something that was talked about during budget development for the 2023 budget was the long-range revenue planning. And we're going to bring that to you in the first half of 2023 as well, with the hopes of kind of finishing up that work before we start the budget for 2024. That's the end of the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, is there any way you can let the numbers speak for itself? Because the way that you describe it, I really do not know, except you said the GMT of 2 minutes. That was great. If it's pretty simple, what the budget was, what the act and the variances. So we can talk about itself. I think for the public too, they can see the real number. It set up some kind of criteria. If something's over 10%, over whatever, and over a certain dollar amount, 50,000, whatever, and those are the items that we should discuss. So I think that will help me a lot, because usually when I see financial number, I want number, not just descriptions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chan. So there are additional details in the packet materials. It's not as granular as what you're describing. It doesn't detail every revenue's performance.
Right.
The difficulty in the cash basis environment, as you're probably aware, is that those numbers can be misleading.
Yes.
We would show property tax collections at something like 55% or something at this point in the year, and we're 3/4 of the way through the year, and it requires an explanation. And so that's the reason I didn't provide that detail. We can provide it with future reports if you prefer.
Yeah, I think future report. I'm not just thinking myself. I'm thinking for the public.
Sure.
Right. I mean, a lot of time, if you present, have a little discussion, then I think as a public will be more confident.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll attach a more detailed report with future reports then.
Yeah, just simply 2 columns. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, just budget to actual. I mean,
actual, and then the variances. That means what the difference are, and then we can. Yeah. No, it's sometimes public guns down like, okay, this is the number. And they don't have to go in a calculator, wait, what? How much we're over, how much we're under, right? It's the variances will tell us. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Chris, for the report. Committee updates. Vice Chair Rowland for the bylaws.
We had a meeting last week on the bylaws, making progress on it. Trying to get out of the weeds and get it kind of into a draft form for you guys to see. I think we have a little bit more work to do on it, and we do have a meeting scheduled. I'd have to check my my calendar for that.
Later this month?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Intergovernmental with Commissioner Chan.
Yes, we have a meeting on yesterday. I got so many things going on in there. Yesterday, but I have to preface it that we did not have too much advance notice. And then a lot of things that, so we would have the chief presented in our executive committee meeting. And then we'll let them, we're going. So what I'm saying that it gone through us, but it's not really completely vetted by us. So I did make some comments. I hope Chief Hoover took it, read, and the training kind of advise that, number one, we can do more advance notice. And then I know situation happened, then we also, I think our committee wanted to be a really engaged type of committee. And so we can advance, we can have input before the thing is done. And I really appreciate Commissioner Fernhoff. He really asked good questions, and then you guys take time to explain to it. Because a lot of time, even in my side, oh yeah, I heard that before, but suddenly realizing, no, he hasn't heard it before. And it's really good for him, especially charts and everything that show up. So it would be great. So then I'm asking, like, give us a little more time, not just half an hour, right? So in case someone has a question, we can allow that kind of question to be asked. So overall.
Hour and a half, I think is what we talked about.
About an hour at least. But first of all, again, let me know what are you going to talk about? I got thought when I looked at that, I said, oh, just update this, we were update, and I didn't realize it. When Commissioner Ruin asked me, what do we have? I said, I really don't know, because I don't know what you have. So I kind of embarrassed it, but we will work a little bit. I think it's a working process. Thank you.
For the Stone Island one, thank you, Commissioner Chan, for the report. For the Stone Island report, they didn't have a meeting last month. They discovered they don't have a quorum because there was some other conferences going on for law enforcement. So it got punted to this month. The finance committee doesn't meet until Thursday. And it's going to be in-person only meeting at the new HQ in 2 weeks, or a week rather. So we'll know more after that point in time. So I don't have a report for that. Commissioner comments. Anybody have any comments? Commissioner Chan.
Well, I'm freezing Chief Eastman in here. Today, you're just proving that you are the, I don't know what was the title now, policy or project, whatever. To me, you're very, I expressed that to that already. You have all this knowledge in here on different area. It is very seldom analysis of your background, because you see the action, everything else. And I do concern, I know that your retirement, keep on talking about it, right? Succession plan, I think to me is critical. You are such a person that only one in this, I can just come to you. And boy, you have all this in your brain. So I do encourage the rest of the commissioner. If you have anything don't understand about a policy, but everything else, go to Commissioner Eastman, Commissioner. Yeah, I'm promoted already. He can really explain to you in person and really explain. God, we got the levy rate, we work. My God, it's so happy. So this reality, I know that you said somebody have a piece of that, but we do someone very jumping rail. Good, next year coming very quick.
Yeah, Chief Eastman is the Fire Services Consolidations. Chief Maxwell's not here, but class of 1996, April 1st, with 3 of our chiefs. They went through the 1 and 11 merger from day one, lived it. Bob's done a great job. He was on the other side of the aisle when I was with Mount Lake Terrace to make that go in 01 and then 05. We've all worked together with Edmonds in 2010 and now with Linwood. So I've talked him into another year. Sounds like, and so we'll take it 1 year at a time, but I'm definitely hearing what you're saying. My hope would be that we can get these contract cities, the Briar Mount Lake Terrace in, and then Edmonds hopefully in the future as well. Maybe talk about another year or not. But once that happens, that would help.
Yeah,
This
but
title is still special projects.
Special project. But I think you need to, I still remember our fire chief pluck him out. We are just a captain, right? He was a,
Captain Emerson.
yeah, captain MSO. You know, rather than other assistant chief, whatever, and we got some work to do, and during that time, and we were able to get that thing worked out. So maybe now you need to identify some of the captain, whatever it is, able to come and train them and while he's here to get the knowledge and training.
Agree, Swiss Army knife, Vietnamese.
That's right.
Unique set of skills.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you. Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Chief Eastman, for the work. Maddox.
Commissioner Rowland, Vice Chair Rowland.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to see if we could bring back up something we were talking about earlier. And that's agenda item 11A. I know that there was a question of whether it should be passed tonight, and you mentioned that it was a first reading. The only thing that's actually changed in that ILA is a single sentence that quotes the RCW and the requirements as they pointed out. So I don't think we really need to spend extra time reviewing something that we've already had in place for 5 years. And I'd like to move that we just approve this agreement as amended.
I'd second that.
Been moved by, motion by Vice Chair Rowland and seconded by Commissioner Farnhoff. Any further questions?
I don't have questions. I know a lot of time we. How many sessions can we do that? I don't know, maybe. Rich Davis can tell me. Can we
Attorney Davis, is there any reason why we can't do a motion?
actions and all that?
No, there isn't. I think it's a board preference to have it brought back at a later time, but you can certainly adopt or approve this tonight if you'd like.
Okay.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor of adopting the Port of Edmonds ILA Marine 16 moorage, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries.
And I make one more comment then,
Sure.
because we have only 2 more weeks in December.
Right.
I'd like to put in an agenda next week for the priority for 2023.
Okay.
Review, first of all, review our priority, how much we have accomplished in 2022, and then talk about agenda on 2023.
Certainly.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? All right. We will go to. What?
So just in closing on that item, the next Board of Recommends meeting is December 12th. I'll sign that document, get that to them for their next meeting. Thank you.
Perfect. Anything? We will go to break. Let's see, I got 8:13, so we will begin executive session. Let's go at 8:30 sharp, so about what, 17 minutes from now. We will cover the potential litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1 subsection I. To consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate by lease or purchase pursuant to RCW 42.30.11 subsection 1 subsection B subsection C. And review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 subsection 1 subsection G, and with the potential for action to be taken. Thank you.
The executive session has been extended by 30 minutes.
The executive session has been extended by 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 10 minutes. The executive session has been extended by 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 10 minutes. The executive session has been extended by 10 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes. The executive session has been extended by 5 minutes. The executive session has been extended by 5 minutes.
We are reconvening to take action on purchase of property. So the chair would like to entertain a motion to 3 parts. 1, approve the purchase and sale agreement dated August 3rd, 2022, as amended for the sum of $2.74 million. The second part is to remove contingencies set forth in the agreement. And the third part is directing the fire chief to take such steps as may be necessary to close on the purchase of the property.
Is that a motion from the chair?
No, entertaining a motion.
Why don't you just make the motion?
I was because the chair's not supposed to make motions.
No, chair can make. motion.
Second, Mr.
Small
Motion.
boards.
All right,
Yeah.
I so move.
I second it.
Commissioner Kenny seconds. All right.
Jesus, guys.
Any questions? None. Perfect. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.